Welcome to the Leipzig Confidential podcast. I am Christopher Elliott, and I'm here with Aaron Elliott. Hello, Aaron.
Hey, I'm doing good.
How are you?
I'm good. I answered your question before you even asked
I
it.
know, that's great.
It's amazing.
High energy. It's one of these high energy podcasts. We're in Leipzig, Germany.
Yes, we are.
It is our last day on our grand tour of Germany. And how are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. After all my tea in the morning, I feel amazing.
You're fully caffeinated,
fully
I know.
caffeinated.
And I should say, we've started doing these podcast recordings in the morning when we have more energy.
Hey.
Instead of like at the end of the day, we're going, hello, this is the Leipzig Confidential podcast. So anyway.
Well, these past couple of days have been particularly exhausting, and today it's just raining, so we have nothing to do.
I know. We were supposed to go out kayaking along the river, and
Hell no.
that's not going to happen because it's pouring outside.
Too bad. Schade.
Schade. This week's question is related to something that we have done, which is we visited one of Europe's most famous destination dupes. That's a thing now, where people are like saying, oh, I want to go here because it's a lot like there.
Mm-hmm.
In the States, we have destination dupes. Solvang, for example, is like Denmark.
Supposed to be like
Mr.
Denmark, but it's
Skeptic.
like...
Yes. And Helen, Georgia is like a Bavarian village.
Oh, and then any ski resort in the United States, they're going to go for that whole alpine theme.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
essentially here, they have their own little thing. It's called Sächsische Schweiz.
Saxon Switzerland, exactly.
Saxonian
and that's
Switzerland.
Good German, too. We were in a place called Schmilka, right on the Czech border. This week's question is, what is your worst destination dupe that you've ever been to? In other words, has anyone ever recommended a place and said, oh, you really got to go to Helen, Georgia. It's just like Bavaria. And you went there and you're like, this is nothing like Bavaria, which for Helen is definitely true.
Well,
It's
yeah,
kind
obviously.
It's kind of not Bavaria, but it tries, but it's not Bavaria. And Solvang, too. I don't know.
Yeah, you know, I mean, there are different ways in which a destination can be very different from the destination it tries to be like. But I think that overall, like, the sense of emptiness and disappointment is really what we're looking for.
Yeah, we want to know about your despairing moments. Yeah, I mean, I think that people are trying to get more visitors to come by saying we're just like Paris or we're just like, you know, the Bavarian Alps. But really, I think a destination should stand on its own. So we want to hear your stories of destination dupes that weren't quite dupes, or maybe you were duped by a destination dupe. That's a good one. I'm also working on a story about this, by the way, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, this week was all about Eastern Germany. We should start with, I think we can both agree, was the highlight, which is that little town on the Czech border. It used to be a border town called Schmilka.
Schmilka, yeah.
Yeah, it was. We were going through a little bit of a heat wave. We checked in. They call themselves the Biostadt Schmilka. What did you think?
Well, Schmilka, we were there at the right time because it was nice and warm. It was actually going through, I think it was a heat dome or something. I don't know. That's what my phone told me, at least. And in any case, it was like a Czech heat dome, and it was really beautiful. You could really feel and smell the pines there. And I should do a quick description before I continue. Schmilka is a town right along a river, and they have these little rock formations that look kind of like Colorado National Monument and other parts of...
These are sandstone monoliths, yeah, and it's right along the Elbe.
It would remind you a lot of Utah, Arizona. It's really crazy. And so it's right along the Elbe. So you have on one side, you know, typical German farmland, and it looks so typically European.
Yes.
You know, being in Europe, you feel like you're trapped inside an impressionist painting, but I digress.
That's true.
It is true, yeah. And then on the other side...
But not when we were there, though.
No. But on the other side, it feels like you're in near the Colorado Plateau in the United States. So Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, you just get those sort of vibes. And that's because there are these rock formations, just these sheer cliffs. And the rocks look really beautiful, and there's really great hiking there. And it has been a destination for painters and rich people and everyone for...
hundreds of years.
Hundreds of years, yeah.
Absolutely. We were there on a really warm day, as you say, and the pine needles start to heat up, and it begins to smell...
Just like Sedona.
Just like Sedona, yeah. It really reminds me of hiking around Sedona and Flagstaff but it was, and we got lost. Actually, we got badly lost, and we didn't get our train. We missed the train we were supposed to be on, but it was well worth it. We got lost up there hiking around these steep drop-offs too. The paths were, I mean, it was to the point where we were hiking up there where they had these like little metal bars that they had hammered into the rock so that you could hold on to them.
It was a via ferrata.
Yeah, and that was scary too, but also just breathtaking. I'll publish pictures on the website so you can see what it looked like.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were really lucky to be there when we were. I mean, it was really crazy how much it reminded me of, Utah and other places. You had these little lavender bushes on the side of the trail with these steep drop-offs, and then you'd have these little bumblebees. You'd hear the bumblebees, and then you look at the drop-off, and it is scary, but then you have these sheer rock formations, which are just incredible to look at. And I was really grateful to be there, especially when it was nice, warm weather, because otherwise this place is so cool that when we were, where we were staying, it was a typical typical construction for the area. It was old construction, but it would be, 36, I don't know how much that is in Fahrenheit. It's like 90, almost 90 Celsius, 90 Fahrenheit, and it would feel really cool, and there's no AC. So this place is definitely, it's a cool place most of the year.
Yeah. It's a year-round resort. Anyway, if you do go to Germany, you got to check this place out. If you go to the Czech Republic, you definitely have to check it out. Get it? Check it out. And yeah, I mean, Schmierka is also a sustainable resort. I'm working on a story about that as well. But that's not the only place. We did really a grand tour of Eastern Germany, and we're kind of working our way backward. But let's talk about Leipzig, because we're here now. Mm-hmm. And it is, I looked it up, it's the 10th largest city in Germany.
10th.
It is the 10th largest city. It's very well known for its messe, its exhibits. So they would have like a fair here twice a year. And it is a very architecturally diverse city. We've been walking around a lot. Your thoughts on this city?
You know what? I really do like some parts of Eastern Germany here. Like we were in Halle and we were in Magdeburg, and there's a certain style about everything. Leipzig is a very big, open city. It's even more so than even Berlin.
Yeah.
However, because of that, also it has it kind of has a feeling of being maybe impersonal and more industrial, but not as much as Halle. Halle felt very, very, in some parts. But then, it's complicated to really make it out in words. But
no, I know what you're saying.
It's an interesting experience. You have a lot of old architecture mixed with Soviet architecture, and this was of course, this was the center of the East German secret police. I mean, there's just so much to discuss here. Right. I think in terms of architecture, really not very much to say, but there's just so much overall about the city that makes it, of course, very unique.
Well, when you refer to the secret police, they have a Stasi museum. The Stasi was, of course, the famous East German secret police, and they have a museum, but they were everywhere in Germany. But the museum here is quite famous and quite controversial, too, because they're thinking of actually tearing part of it down or the whole thing down.
Yes. But people here are really attached to these old buildings.
They are. There is this attachment that I have never come across really anywhere else in Germany, is that everything is supposed to be preserved, and they really are very hesitant to take anything down. It's a city that very much is looking back in some ways. They like to appreciate what they were. There's a big church here. Bach is buried in the church. It's really very appreciative of its past. Leipzig wasn't the only city that we visited. We were also in a place called Halle, and the highlight of our visit to Halle was a visit with a shaman.
Yeah, so we went to this prehistory museum, that is history that had no system of writing.
Yes.
None at least that we could recognize. And so, in any case, there's this exhibit, it's a permanent exhibition on a shaman, and it wasn't known that this was a shaman for a long time. So essence, there was this little village called Bad Dürrenberg.
Yeah.
We've shortly after visited Bad Dürrenberg and exactly where they dug up this shaman. So in the 30s, they dug up this skeleton. They put it away because, of course, World War II. And then later on, university students found this skeleton. They did some research and they found a lot of very interesting things. And they went back to the site and even discovered more about this person. It was a woman, and they realized that she was a shaman and that she was of very much importance to people for at least 200-300 years afterwards. So it's sort of like a religion. She was like almost a saint or
Yeah, she was a star.
Yeah. And so people were celebrating her long afterwards, and we have no idea who the person is.
When you visit the museum, you see the skeleton and all the things that were unearthed, excavated next to her. So you see there were horns and animals, various animals, and there was even a young baby next to her. We're not really sure who the baby was. And it's really fascinating because I think that this is just one of those things where looking back can actually be very useful. They kept studying this skeleton and realizing as they studied the skeleton more and they got more technology, they realized that, first of all, they thought it was a male skeleton, then they realized it was a female skeleton. Then they started to realize that she had some special physiology. This was the cool thing, is that there was a defect in one of the bones in the back of her head, and so when she leaned her head back, she would cut the blood supply off to her brain. Not kidding. And she would start going into like these seizures.
Yeah.
And I think people thought that was something mystical and thought that she was, she had some special powers because of it. Fascinating. Fascinating.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, that shaman, and then the garden show where you can actually see where they dug up the shaman.
Yeah, they have this golden ball there.
Yeah, is really kind of the thing to do when you're in Halle. Well, there are a lot of other attractions as well. The one thing about Eastern Germany that will probably stay with me for years to come is our visit to a place called the Coconut.
Oh yeah, that was very interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, Bad Belzig. So there's a little train station, Bad Belzig, and about a 7-minute drive from there. There's a it's a workcation retreat.
Yes.
And essentially the idea is that you go to some place, it's like a hotel.
It's an old farmhouse that they've renovated, yeah.
And it's a community space, and you use it essentially in lieu of an office, and so you're able to get work done, of course, in nature. And I guess there's some benefit to that. And so for very creative people working alone, people working online, they can come to this place. They serve you meals. They have community areas, and they have a wide variety of room types. So you can have a private room. You can have they've got dorms, and then they also have an area outside where you can set up a tent, and you're just in the middle of the fields.
Yeah.
And there's nothing going on, and you can just get work done.
The fields in this part of Germany at this time of year are, the grain is about as high as it gets. It's about to be harvested. There's corn out there, and then there's bushes that are filled with berries, ripening berries.
Yeah.
And one of our favorite things to do is to walk along these old farm roads and pick the blackberries.
Yes. No, actually the best place for blackberries, though, I have to say, was Schmilka.
Yeah, they had
so many blackberries. It was insane. But I digress.
Well,
the point is that it wasn't corn. I didn't see any corn, actually. I saw wheat. I saw oats. I saw even buckwheat.
I saw corn. Maybe it was just from the train that I saw corn. But going back to Schmilka, we snuck into the Czech Republic, and that road between Schmilka and the first Czech village there, whose name escapes me at the moment, that had all the blackberries along it. It was like a blackberry alley.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. I've seen here, even in Leipzig, if you go to a part that is a little bit more overgrown, you just see blackberries everywhere. And I never thought I would see so many blackberries, just ripening blackberries
It's a beautiful
in my
thing.
life. Yeah, just
it's-
all over here.
Overall impressions of Eastern Germany, Aaron?
I think that this is an interesting place to visit. You don't see a lot of Americans visiting here at all, actually. And
That's right.
it's a shame. I think Berlin definitely makes sense why people would want to visit Berlin, but I think Schmirka definitely deserves more attention. I think that a place like Leipzig, I mean, there's still history here in Halle, Magdeburg. Um, yes, there's a lot of history in all of these places. So if you're interested in history and you're not interested in maybe just seeing like the Brandenburg Tor in Berlin and then just seeing a couple of museums and then flying out. Like if you have a little bit more time, get a train. It's like an hour down here and there's even more to see.
Yeah. And the nice thing is you don't have to worry about missing a train. I just read a statistic that German trains were only 65% on time, something like that. So if you think that you missed a train, you probably haven't missed the train.
Yeah, I have no idea why that is. The Swiss trains are perfect. Here, they're just all late.
They're working on it. They're actually doing a lot of construction work. My overall impressions of Eastern Germany are that it is something that's overlooked by Western tourists, specifically by Americans, which is a real shame. I think that if you came here, you would get more value for your money, for sure.
100%.
I mean, we didn't even talk about the national park that we went to and the experience that we had there just touring. It's very affordable.
Yeah. Well, and then also another thing is really, even in Berlin, which is, die Hauptstadt.
Yes, and expensive, a little bit more expensive.
It's really not that expensive.
Yeah, not that bad.
It's not as bad as LA.
No.
No. Or New York City. New York City,
yeah. Well, we've been to all of those places, and they were considerably more expensive than Germany.
Even Tampa was more expensive than Berlin.
I know.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Tampa.
I think that if you're a foodie, you definitely want to go to a place like Berlin. You can find anything in Berlin. You can buy really decent food, good bread too.
Good Johannisbeeren.
Good Johannisbeeren, yes.
Look, if you come here in the summer and you don't have the Johannisbeeren, which are red currants,
so good.
You're committing a sin.
Yes, you have to eat the red currants here because they're good. You can find them in any grocery store, and they are not expensive, and they're really beautiful, tart kind of berries. Love it.
Perfect.
But I would come back for sure, and I think maybe I would spend more time just hanging out in the countryside and enjoying the beautiful scenery, and the people are very nice as well. I thought the people were a little bit more abrupt in Leipzig, but out in the countryside, very nice. Remind me a lot of the Bavarians that I used to know when I was growing up.
Yeah.
In our last podcast, we asked the question, what's the best walking city you've ever visited? It's funny, we were going to do another question about hiking because we did so much hiking, but we got a lot of great responses. So Sam says, I walk everywhere. Walking is the best way to discover a city or village. She says Santiago, Chile is one of my favorite cities for walking. Safe, flat sidewalks, interesting neighborhoods to pass through and explore. And Aaron, you and I were in Santiago only a few months ago.
Yes, Santiago is a nice place to walk, especially if you stay in the right parts of Santiago. Now, there's a downtown area that is a little bit run down, a little bit scary. I think I would avoid there, but, if you're going to go to Santiago, definitely stay in the eastern part of Santiago, and you have all of this data on the most developed parts, and that would be, it would be the eastern parts, generally speaking. I forget exactly. It's Vitacura.
Yeah, there are some places definitely to avoid. It's easy to find out what those are.
Exactly.
Or you can listen to our old podcasts.
Of course. But there's like a little park, the Metropolitan Park, that's really nice for hiking too.
Yeah, we love that place.
Very safe and nice. All right. DSW Ministry says, I enjoyed Lucerne a lot. I didn't like Las Vegas though, not a fan. I would love to visit Berlin and stay at the Bunker Hotel.
The Bunker
That's
Hotel
not in Berlin.
that was Hamburg, yes.
That's Hamburg,
yes.
yeah.
Bunker Hotel was pretty cool. Room's
Yeah.
a little bit small. Vegas is not really a walking city.
No.
When people think of Vegas, they think of Paradise, which is where all the casinos are. That's really not much of a walking city. But if you go to Las Vegas, that downtown area, you can kind of walk around there, but it's really more for cars.
What I've never understood about Vegas is that it is an area that a lot of very athletic people, sporty people go for two things: rock climbing and then mountain biking. And I never understood that because, like, where are you going to... I guess you go to California for that.
Yeah, I mean, there's some outdoor stuff that you can do in Nevada, and we did when we were living in Reno. We did a lot of outdoor stuff, but yeah, most of it is like the casinos. It's all about gambling there. Joyce says best by far is Reykjavik, which a place that we haven't been to in a long, long time.
We've never been there.
I've been there, but you haven't. We should go. She says it's small enough to walk everywhere in the central downtown area. Plenty to see and do, and loads of great bookstores and coffee shops. Best coffee shops in the world, I think, are in South Korea, in Seoul.
Yeah, and Seoul is not that bad for pedestrians. There are some parts that are a little bit difficult as a pedestrian.
But we're going to be in Finland soon, and I'm told that they drink more coffee per capita than any other place.
Yeah.
So we might also find some excellent
maybe,
coffee while we're there.
Mandy writes, Florence, Italy, without a doubt. So we live there now. Wow. Small walking city with lots to do and see every day. Probably the least expensive big city in Europe, with good weather and great food and decent medical. No wonder it's a first choice for American expats.
Florence is nice. What can I say?
Hey, I didn't know that. I mean, when I think of cheap places in Europe, I mean, where do I think of?
I don't think of Florence. But you know what? Here's the thing about walking in a city like Florence is they have so many cobblestones, and it's so easy if you don't have the right shoes to kind of twist your ankle. And I mean, it's you have to really watch where you're going, but the walking is great. I mean, it's just there is so much to see in a place like Florence. So the only thing I would say is cobblestones. Don't like them. I mean, they're beautiful to look at. And in Portugal, they're really slippery too when it rains.
Oof, yeah.
But the worst part about a cobblestone for me is the luggage. Our luggage does not. I mean, rolling luggage is the natural enemy of rolling luggage is cobblestones.
Yes, well, you should see my wheels. You have some upgraded wheels on your baggage. I have just normal wheels, and they're shredded. Oh man, they're shredded.
That's not good.
I should show you photos.
It's time for some new luggage. All right, Alan says best walking city, definitely Tokyo. It's so dense that there's something interesting around every corner. In addition, clean and safe transit is available in all parts of town. Alan, I could not agree with you more.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tokyo is definitely... I mean, there's some parts of Tokyo where, let's just say, you're not able to cross the street because just the highway is so big.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
There was this one place in southern Tokyo, the southern parts of Tokyo, where we were, where you had to go underground in order to get to the other part, and we were doing laundry there. That's the only reason why I needed to cross.
You can actually do most of Tokyo underground.
Oh, I think that's the coolest thing is when you look at Google Maps and you see you're able to press the -1 and it shows you the whole underground arcade area. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today for the LA Confidential podcast. We are off to our next destination, which is
Stockholm,
Sweden. Yes, can't wait to tell you more about that, which we will in our next podcast. Until then, have a great rest of your summer and stay safe. We'll see you soon.